Let me try again. Good morning. Can everybody hear me? I assume it's fine. I'm a lawyer by former occupation, so I have that like project to the back of the court, to the front of the courtroom kind of thing going. Did everybody get a booklet? This is a working workshop, I would say, this morning. Hopefully, you all have something that you can apply this to. Did you all get a workbook? No.
I'm bored.
Okay. So this morning, so I'm an entrepreneur. I started a business. I started Accelerant. We started as the training source in 2003. So we were at that 12. Actually, it was this time in the year. It was November 1st, and registered with the Secretary of State December 1st. So I'm very familiar with this journey. Who in here is an entrepreneur or an owner-operator? Just to have a sense. Great. And who in here works for an organization or with an organization of any kind, a business of any kind? So for those of you who are owners or participate in the running of a business, this is going to be a real nuts and bolts kind of experience for you. And for those of you who are working within a business where maybe this is not your first line of responsibility, hopefully by walking through all the various parts of what make up what we call the people side of business will help you to see where your organization has opportunities to improve and how you can, some recommendations on how you can contribute to that. So we are going to talk about, I need to find my clicker here. Today we are going to talk about 8 areas. We created this guidebook that you have because we have an area of our business called, a big area called company, we call it company development. Who knows what that is, right? So we said we need to document exactly what this is so we can tell, we can speak about it. And it's a lot of those fundamental pieces of a business that we all know about, but we don't necessarily think about on a daily basis, or we don't necessarily relate them together. So for today's purposes, and we're going to talk about mission and strategic vision, culture and core values, leadership and succession, position success map. This is sort of an Accelerant term, but this is the roles and responsibilities of each position and of teams, company policies, the selection process, your internal customer service, how teams relate to each other, and incentivizing sales performance. So we have an hour. So we are going to speed walk through this process. I will be your speed walking companion, and you will also be each other's speed walking companion. So if you do not presently have a buddy, you will need to find one, because we will be having some conversations in the room. We will try to keep it, if you've ever been, and I know some of you have, to an Accelerant event, you know we can't do anything that's not interactive. So also you come to these events to learn from each other as well as from the presenters. So that is a fundamental belief that I have, that we all have so much to learn from each other. We want to make sure you have the opportunity to do that. So in your book, you will find on page 3, if you look at the bottom of the screen on the slide, it will tell you what page in the book to be on. So there is a quick, emphasize the word quick, company needs assessment. So if you apply this to your business, apply this to a business that you are thinking about, if it's not yours, or if you're a student, you could apply this maybe to your school or something like that, club or something like that. So if you could, there's a series of questions. Read the questions and just answer it. And just do what first comes to mind. Do not overanalyze this quiz, because you will only have about a minute to accomplish it, a minute or 2. everybody done? Okay. So we're a learning and development company as well. So part of the instructional design aspect of this is to start to get your brain around some more detail about what these topics are. So what I'd like for you to do is, if there are 2 questions for each bucket that we had, let me go back to the buckets. So if you answered, which way is it, yes or no? If you marked both dots, that both questions resonated with you in a topic, sort of circle that topic, because as we keep coming back to them, those are the ones that you'll start to think about focusing on, and before we end, these may be ones that you'll create an action plan for yourself on. So a good way to start to think about this is, if both of these questions in the category resonated with you, just circle that little bucket for yourself. So I'd like for you to think about, it's Thanksgiving 2015, and I'd like for you to think about Thanksgiving 2013. 2 years ago, you might have been sitting around the Thanksgiving table, and think about something very important in your business, or your business life, so to speak, that has changed between then and now. What is something that you would sit at the table in a week or 2, right, and say, hey Mom, this is something I accomplished in my business over the last 2 years. If I may use you as an example, we have a startup, right, in October.
Right.
And so, as an example, do you mind me doing this with you right now? I'm calling you out, I know. He attended another event, and he was the speaker 2 weeks ago, so I figured you wouldn't mind. So I'm imagining 2 years ago, you maybe were thinking about starting a business?
Right, yes.
And what has changed in the last 2 years now when you sit at the table?
Well, we have started a business, and it's turned into the what next kind of thing.
So that's a huge accomplishment in just 2 years. And so think about what that is for you, or something inside of your business. Maybe you didn't have staff and now you do, or maybe you didn't have that salesperson and now you do, whatever it is. Now think about 2 years from now. So 2017, Thanksgiving, oil prices are back, everybody's happy. That's what I think about every day. And what has changed in your business now? Maybe you have a few more employees now, right?
Yeah, the leadership and succession.
Leadership and succession. So that's what this session is about. As business owners, what do they tell us? Take time to think every day. Who does this? Who takes time to really think strategically every day?
Right.
Okay, I do it in the shower. That's my time. I do it. There are these notepads. I was telling Pete about this. My business partner finally got me these shower notepads, because that's where I solve the world's problems. I write on those suckers every single day. But we don't always have the time to do that, right? And so this hour is your time to think about your business strategically, and in particular to think about where you are today and some things that may get you to where you want to be in 2 years and in 4 years. I think as a small business, that's really difficult to think about 4 years. So we're going to really focus on the 1 to 2 years, things we can do now to make a difference. Okay, so think about these doctrines. We all know about strategic planning, right? And I think the number one reason not to do strategic planning is because we overcomplicate it. Right? You read a lot of books, we learn about it in school. It involves lots of math and spreadsheets and all kinds of things that we feel incompetent to do. Because no matter what area of specialty you have, you are always at a disadvantage in one of the other areas of strategic planning you're supposed to be doing, right? Because we are not superhuman and have every skill set in the world. So we like to think of this whole area of strategic planning, so mission, vision, values, as think of them as what makes sense for my business right now. So when we started a business, we didn't have a mission. We had values. We made decisions on those values. They're now we have staff, and now we have a really pretty poster and whatnot on our wall, right? We didn't have that. But we would write them at the top of our meetings, and we have had values because that's what was important to us at the time. And we came to the rest of these things over time. So part of it is maybe also not trying to take the whole bite at once. So as we talk about these categories of, and there's also lots of definitions, right? They're all right. Whatever your definition is fantastic. I'm just going to give a sense of what these concepts are so you can think about whether or not this is something you might want to focus on here in the short term to make a difference. So vision is what we were just talking about. This is picking a date in the future and considering what that might look like if we were successful. So this is you talking to mama 2 years from now at your Thanksgiving table, right? It's also, you can have a longer term vision, the strategic vision, which is a longer term vision. Pick a date 10 years in the future, 5 years in the future. So some of the questions in your book and in your assessment, the challenge is often when it's time to think about mission and strategic vision is it kind of feels like time to take the company to the next level, right? If you were here for Ann's presentation, that up curve and then the second up curve, that's kind of what it feels like. I need to go to that next up curve, so that may be a time when it's time to refocus on mission and strategic vision. May also feel it if I wish I could get my management team in lockstep agreement on the direction we're going, or even our partner group. Anybody have partners? You have a partner? That is often what it feels like. Or my people are not always focused on the most important things. People include you, right? We're not feeling like we're not focused on the most important things. Mission and strategic vision is something also we can have at a personal level. You can have at a department level. You can have at an organizational level. So just think about how that might apply in the context that you live in your business context. So strategic vision is like the North Star, right? Everybody knows what it is, right? Where it is. And your mission is really your North Star, right? Little children can find it. Everybody in your organization knows. And it doesn't change. No matter where you are in the world, that's where you're going. The vision is more how you get there. You know, so if the mission is to get to California, you may decide to fly, more expensive, more direct, faster. You may decide to drive, it's cheaper, it's more enjoyable, maybe you get to see a lot of sights along the way. And as companies, we have to decide where we're going, what's our North Star, and how are we going to get there. And that's where a lot of our business philosophies, I think, are formed when we decide where is our North Star and how are we going to get there. So between our mission and strategic vision, once we figure that out in a really simple way, we can articulate that to everybody else, and that helps them stay headed to the North Star even when we're not there. So that's what that means to me. This is culture. I think culture is one of those things that everybody talks about it, but you don't really know what it is. Anybody feel that way? Like, what is that culture stuff? I really like some of that, but... So, culture is what is the environment on your boat, right? So you have people, everybody talks about getting the right people on the bus. Okay, so you put the people on the bus, let's call it a boat. You get all the right people on the boat, and there's an environment. Is it a nice boat? How do people treat each other on the boat? Are there enough life vests? So there's a culture on the boat. It's either one for all or all for one, or me over you. There's lots of things this looks like. There's also things about, like, do we have fun? Are we here to work? Or do we do both? Are we cleaning the deck all the time and no breaks? What does that look like? Culture is really the demonstration of your values. So we talk about this thing, core values, and we think about culture. So we've sort of landed on this idea that, so we have a value, have fun. That's a value we've always had in our company. Yesterday, our staff was working hard. It was a Friday, and we're not industrial, so we can do this. And I got a little delivery of wine to my car from the wine guy. So yesterday afternoon, everybody sat around the office, and they were working diligently with a glass of wine. That's part of our culture. Not everybody can do that. So when you have a culture, you see there's rocky seas, things are bad, turbulence, there's clouds. And then there's times that are really, really good, and we've all been through this, where your culture stays the same regardless of what the weather is. And this is more about how we treat each other, how we treat our customers, who we say we are. Now, when you have a culture that is very well defined based on core values, it allows things like this to happen. I recently stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, which is very well known for its culture, and many of you may know their story. And I was very aware of they're a great example of how everybody in the organization, down to the people who park your car, everyone understands about we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's our culture. And they are empowered to live that culture every day. So I get to my room, and I look for the bubble bath. There's no bubble bath. I call, and I say, hey, no, do you have a little bottle of, I'm thinking, those little freebie little bottles of bubble bath, right? So is there any bubble bath? And the manager says, someone will be right up. About 15 minutes later, a man arrives with a big bag. It was our anniversary, so it's got all kinds of like confetti coming out of it. It's a huge bag with this huge bottle of bubble bath from the spa. So they did not have bubble bath, but the manager was empowered that this lady wants bubble bath, and look how many people are going to know about this bubble bath at the Ritz-Carlton, right? So that is a demonstration. He didn't have to ask anybody to do that, and it was executed in less than 15 minutes. So this is how. So when you think about what experience do you want your customers to have, those are the kind of things that are driven by the culture you have. So spending time in the culture space is a good idea when you are looking to maintaining the desired work environment as your company grows. So what happens, especially around here, we see this a lot, is you have a cool tech company, or you have this wonderful family oil service company, or you have this small, a really talented medical office, right? And you're very successful, and things start to grow. And now you're in different offices, and now you're in different geographies. And what we often find is, and in fact, we had a customer a couple years ago say, we are not opening one more location until we get this right. Because we're starting to grow outside of the culture that we desire. And we need a way to blend our Texas culture with our Louisiana culture. And so growth had created a perceived culture issue that once they started to pay attention to it, it turned out it really wasn't. They just hadn't taken the time to talk about it. It was very, very easy to accomplish. So if you're looking to bottle up what makes your company great and spread it everywhere, or you are looking to, you have these values on the wall, right? You have these values on the wall, but nobody's really sure what they mean or how to do that, it's time to relook at that. So for you, in your book on page 10, is a little exercise, again, a very quick exercise, to consider whether any of these ideas, you'll see it's right here, take the time to think on page 10, for you to consider whether any of these ideas are important for you to focus on in your business. Mission, vision, values, you could pick one, if that's the only one that really is important to you right now, or you could, do 1, 2, 3. You can organize them. And in the book, for each of these topics we just talked about, are some very specific ideas about what they are and some recommendations about what you can do about it. So you may want to revisit this after you've had the opportunity to read more, but loosely, if you pick one that is important, kind of start to think about what the process you use, which is I highly recommend engaging others in the process. Don't go off in a corner and decide what your culture should be. Right? Don't go off and come to your partners and say, I've come up with a great mission. Yeah. Right? Do it together with the people who are really important to the business. So that's the with whom. So what steps would you take? You might say, hey, I might have a meeting with the partners. Might start there. And then we might branch that out and talk to our leadership team. Or we may talk to our advisors, or we may bring in our customers. So with whom? Who would it be important to collaborate with? And most importantly, select a date. So I don't recommend doing all three, right? Pick one. And select a date that you would like to have this accomplished for yourself. I'll give you a minute to do that. So, I know there is never enough time. This is the speed walking part. What I wanted to provide here is an opportunity for you to start this process of thinking. And also, if you, this is the time for you to find your buddy and to talk about one of two things or both. We have 5 minutes. And it is, what is an area that you circled in the beginning that's important to you and why? So something that really resonated with you and what you're trying to accomplish with that. And the second is share. You could share your answer from this exercise or anything related to what we just talked about. But those two things, if you could spend 5 minutes, think about it that you want the other person to have a chance to talk also. Think of it as a dialogue and not a, I'm going to spend 5 minutes telling you all about myself, right? So, introduce yourself so that you've made a new connection and friend, and maybe introduce your name, who you're with, what your role is, if you don't know each other, and then talk about one of those two things, which is what you're trying to accomplish, or what the results from your quiz, something about your business that you'd like to focus on, or mission, vision, values, and what that means to you or your deadline. Is that it? Does everyone have someone to talk to? Nice to meet you. You could start to wrap up your conversation. Okay, I hate to break up lively conversations, but so whether you were on task or off task, which I saw business cards exchanging, is perfect. It's fantastic. That was fantastic. Because it's part of taking the time to think, right? It's not just taking the time to think, but it's taking the time to connect. So meeting some new people, catching up with a friend, all of that are important things to growing your business. How many ideas have you had by stopping and visiting with a friend or seeing someone? I do this with Ann all the time. I might cross her path for 2 minutes and something very valuable comes out of that. So did everybody meet somebody new?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Great. Okay. So we're going to continue our speed walking here and move into a new topic, leadership and succession. So the challenge here is preparing a pipeline of qualified, prepared leaders now and into the future. And this, you often feel this when some company managers lack leadership skills like communication. I think the biggest one is actually delegation. And do you have one person doing everything because they feel like if they don't do it themselves, it won't get done right? Do any of us resemble that remark? We don't have a solid plan for identifying and developing future leaders, or maybe the person who's going to take over for us, right? Our next in line. This is very important whether or not you have a small business, a one business, or a large business. If you're a solo, what happens when you get sick and customers are relying on you? That's part of your succession planning, and it's not a long-term succession planning, it's part of your leadership plan. Who's in place to handle things in your business when you actually want to take a vacation? Because taking a vacation is a very important part of being an entrepreneur. You'll lose your mind. And if you're in a larger company, then how do you ensure that you're able to continue to grow because you have people to backfill those positions? So that's what some of this feels like. At Accelerant, we developed a very specific philosophy about leadership and succession. It's sort of taking it to a very tactical, sort of specific level. So growing companies, entrepreneurial companies, whether you're a first stage, second stage company, or I've been around a long time, leadership development is not a one-size-fits-all situation. And so a way to think about this is, who are your key leaders or teams? So think about who they are. And then what does success for them look like? So that may look different for an up-and-coming VP of operations who's very talented but maybe lacks experience. And for someone who's been in the business for a long time, who's maybe a technical professional, an IT person, who is growing with the business, does not want to nor has the capability to manage people. And how do you retain them in the business and continue to grow them as a leader in the business? And I think that's something we're seeing more and more is these technical professionals who, some of whom also have people leadership skills, and some who are very talented in leading and managing the work. And so as you think about leadership and success and what that looks like, it's going to look very different depending on the person. Also, you can think about who are the critical teams in our business and what kind of development are we giving them. Maybe we have a new team that needs to come together. Maybe we have some new members to a team, or maybe we just have some dysfunctional teams, because that happens. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So leadership and succession to think about, and we'll have a little work session on this in a minute. but that's how we think about it. So another way to think about this, and we're now on page 16, if you want to, if you're a reader and like to follow along, not auditory, listening to my voice. Can everybody still hear me, by the way? Yes. Okay. So company policies. This is a very interesting area. So this is when you want to keep all your managers and employees on the same page about what is expected. I see this show up when you get asked the same question over and over again. Or somebody comes to you, and it's like parents, right? Then they go to your business partner and ask them the same thing because they didn't like your answer. Or they make up their own, which is also fine sometimes, right? Depends on your culture. But sometimes you know when this is, and it's knowing when you see it. It's time to write down a couple of policies. So if you're small, you don't need a big old handbook, right? But you may need some fundamental policies so that the people, even if it's your partners, sometimes need policies to live by, so everybody's living by the same policies. We decided as a partnership group we do not have a vacation policy, but we made a decision not to make a policy about that, right? Because otherwise you live in limbo, like, do I care if they're taking vacation, right? It's something we had to talk about, just make a decision about. You can move on in your life, right? Or you make a decision that you are going to have a policy, you're going to have a policy for certain things. So I did provide a list of, if you do have employees, of some policies. I was an employment lawyer by former occupation. I'm a big believer that do not go and steal a policy book from some company and download it and go, we have a policy book. We're good. In our experience, the best way to develop company policies is to get a representative group around the table together for a series of meetings. It's the longer, if you're an engineer, you might not like this because it's less efficient. No offense to any engineers in the room. This is not the most efficient way to accomplish it, but in the long run, it is a more effective way, which is you get the people together who either are governed by the policies and or who are going to be implementing the policies, and you want representation from both to decide what makes sense based on your culture. I know we had one situation recently where dress code was a big issue, and there were some issues that you would not imagine in an IT company around dress code. We couldn't make it up, but this was very important. There are things, cartoon t-shirts are very important. And so there are some decisions that have to be made about those kind of things. You make it once. You can always revisit policies. It's not like it has to live forever, but you will know it when you feel it. Like, I wish our managers would follow our company handbook. That means you have a handbook and nobody knows what's in there, right? Or they think it's stupid, so they're not going to enforce it anyway. And employees complain that managers are unfair and inconsistent because everybody's just making up their own rules. So these are not bad things. They're just things that happen with growth. And if you're feeling those things, it's probably time to look at your company policies or to put some things in writing. So these are just some of the things that come up. I mean, last year we have 11 people in our office. Inclement weather was a huge, y'all remember that? Yeah. I mean, and so here we are, with 5 partners. We're all emailing like, what do we do with what do you do? Are we open? Are we closed? Who decides? So we had to get our act together and make policy about that. So sometimes that's how you feel it. Internal customer service. This is like, is it feeling like speed walking? We're going to get to make sure you're able to digest some of this. Internal customer service is when you are experiencing, usually what this feels like is lots of complaining about one department to another. Often operations, sales, and have you ever seen that before in a company? But it could be accounting. It could be anybody in the office and anybody in the field, right? So this shows up in lots and lots of different ways. The bookkeeping. We need to eliminate slowdowns caused by bottlenecks and frustration between departments. Anytime something is not getting done as fast as you think it should be, that is a time, and there's work flowing between departments, it's time to look at whether your departments are being, first, are they getting along as a team? Is there a team issue? Is there a process issue inside of one department? And two, how are your departments relating to each other? And are they being good vendors and customers, if you want to use that analogy, to each other? And that is often a really good place to look, and I have a little way for you to think about that in a minute. So this often shows up actually from a client. There's some dissatisfaction, like I didn't get what I was promised. So sales promises one thing, they get delivered another by a different department. Safety issues or quality issues often relate to this interdepartmental silo type thing happening. And then work just takes entirely too long to get through the system. So any frustrations around that, it's a good time to look at this department-related issue. So, and here's what I'm talking about. If you just think about a department and another department, and as if you're a small business owner, often you have a hat of one department, and then you have to step over here and be the hat of another department. It works the same way, actually. And it's, how are things working inside of that department? Are they working well? Is there a breakdown? And then how well are they serving each other? So when you're addressing this, you need a recommendation is to think about what is a critical process that happens either inside of the department or that's related to the breakdown, or that is related to the two departments. So identify what are some critical processes, like what are we talking about? Are we talking about procurement? Are we talking about the sales pipeline? Are we talking about closing bids? What process are we talking about? And who touches that process? What positions touch that process? And then that tells you who can get together to solve that problem. So on your book, on page, does anybody have it right in front of them? Yep. And actually I'm going to do it this way. We've covered several different topics, right? We covered leadership and succession. So in your book, if leadership and succession is one of the things you had highlighted in the beginning, is something you wanted to think more about, then stop here on page 14. This is going to be an individual activity. If company policies is something that you want to think more about, then I have a checklist for you to work on page 18. So if your company policy, stop on page 18. And if the internal customer service was resonating with you, then your page is page 22. That one is the most complicated, but I think it's self-explanatory. Write the name of the team like I had on the slide, sales, operations, or admin, and just answer the questions anywhere on the page as you start to diagnose maybe what the challenge is for yourself. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to get started on this. Maybe about 2 minutes, pick just one of those pages to think about leadership, to think about company policies, or to think about internal customer service. Yes, and there's also an electronic version of the survey that comes about. That's also on the digital copy. Yeah, and so there's a book, and then there's also the survey. So I'll send you a link.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, this is
Can't read people that
yeah. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
glad you have sort of completed the beginning. Obviously, you can get back to this, right? But would anybody kind of share one that they picked? And give us the short version.
Well, I chose internal customer service. So I recruit companies, and then I have someone who services the companies and the potential or current members, and then our branches actually serve the members. So it's a 3-tier process, and I'm actually right in the middle of taking care of some challenges between mine and the third that's in the middle. So
Great example. Excellent example. Did anyone have one from the leadership area? You did?
For me, I'm a sole proprietor. I provide services, and it's really for me to, my key leaders are really to my virtual partners. And so it's, of course, engaging with the established relations that I have. Some of the ladies are here in the room, and to develop and identify skill sets and industry experience that maybe I haven't covered thus far, and to seek out those talents to have a more well-rounded virtual partnership.
Yeah. Great. Well, fantastic. So I encourage you to continue to fill out those worksheets as you take additional time to think. They are not waterproof. You can't do it in the shower, so you'll have to take some office time maybe. So the next few topics we're going to cover relate to this thing that's difficult. Selecting the right people, getting the right people on the bus. The challenge, this usually shows up when you're trying to make sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and that they're spending their time on the right things. And this is often with growing business, especially entrepreneurial business, a shifting and constant, it's like you might play golf. It's like a golf course, right? You can get it beautiful. You can get roles and responsibilities all straightened out. You can get it all documented. And then what happens? Somebody comes and plays a round of golf that they're supposed to do, right? So on it. And now it has to be tended to again. And I think that a lot of this is like that. But with a growing company, your job descriptions, something that documents what everybody is supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be spending their time and in what buckets, that changes a lot. And so that has to be revisited often, more frequently than I think any of us think. And what I'm trying to help you identify is, how do I know when I need to do what, right? So in this case, if you're feeling like, my people know exactly what I want them to be doing. So why aren't they doing it? And we all wear multiple hats, and so now it's time to clarify who's going to do what. When we started the company, well, a little bit after we started the company, we had 3 people, and we had 5 departments. Now that sounds crazy. But that was kind of how we sorted it out. Was we looked at it and said, as an organization, we have 5 departments, we have 3 people, so this is a job. And this is a job, and I'm going to do those 2 jobs, and then this is a job, and that's a job. And that continued to evolve and change, and we sort of still operate like that 12 years later with a lot more people, but it has helped us a great deal to be really clear about our organizational structure, what are our departments that the work gets done in, and who is responsible for those. Because one thing, especially in entrepreneurial companies, I don't know if you've experienced this, is sometimes it gets hard to make decisions. Sometimes you feel like you need a committee to make a $2 decision, or things like that. So having sort of an idea about what your framework is and who's responsible for those decisions and being accountable to each other for that, but also especially this is also for yourself. If you are struggling in a position, or you feel overwhelmed, or you are, a business owner, and you're the service provider, and then you're also the customer service, and you're also go get the work, and you're sometimes it's hard to focus on what am I supposed to be doing, and taking the time to document that. So I would encourage you to think about it this way. You know how a first baseman has a different job than a catcher? Well, there's that, right? And also a pitcher is expected to have certain results in pitching, but maybe depending on what league he's in, is not expected to bat. So there's different, so when you have a job like a pitcher, you have different responsibilities, or let's use a catcher, because I have a friend who was a catcher. And part of his job was to do a really good job catching, right, and directing the work of the pitcher. That was one part of his job. Another part of his job was batting. And he didn't need to be the best batter, he just needed to be a reasonably good batter. But he had another part of his job that was to mentor new pitchers. This is in the majors, right? That was part of his job. And he was really clear that that was part of his job. And sometimes when we don't take the time to sort out the different buckets, there's part of our job that we forget. Sometimes managers forget that a lot of time in conversation with employees is a part of their job. I've heard, if I didn't have to talk to these people all the time, I could get my work done. Right? So, and we all have that. So even for ourselves, taking the time to identify what buckets. So think about it this way: if you were to divide your job into a pie, and you made the slices, what would be the headline of those different slices? And then sort of work from there. And that's what I mean by a position success map. So what is the roadmap? What are your slices of pie? And then tasks and duties really just fall underneath those headlines. So other times you may need a position success map. A role has recently changed. You're not satisfied with somebody's performance. Someone's not doing what's expected. You're wearing many hats. And there's turnover. Turnover, one place to look, aside from poor leadership. First look at the manager, even if it's you, of the turnover. And also how well defined the position is in terms of what is successful performance. Let's see. So finding the right people with the right skill set, attitude, and personality that fit your culture, how hard is that? So you know when you feel it, it's hard. Maybe you have this one position and you just cannot find the right position. Or you're frustrated with that level of turnover and you lose a lot of people in a position. So if that is the case, you may be missing some parts of your selection process. So the reason you notice I'm using the term selection and not recruiting, so people tend to say recruiting, I need to recruit somebody for this position. Recruiting is just the pool of people with whom you have to select. The most important part of the process is taking the time to select the right people from the pool. And we often skip steps. We have done it once. We skipped steps in the process. We had the process, but we got really desperate and we skipped a step, and you can assume how that turned out. So there are basic steps: initial phone screen, reference check, competency assessments, structured interview. There's a way to interview that is very, very helpful, and there are ways to interview that are very, very not. As a former defense attorney, there are also ways to interview people that are very, very illegal. So if you don't know what those things are, this is an area you want to get more educated about. Having all of these steps, they say that just interviewing someone has less or the same probability of success as flipping a coin. Should I hire this person? Flip. Should I hire this person? I'm going to interview them. That's only part of the equation, because a great salesperson does not just have shiny shoes. And there's a set of competencies, even based on the very specific position that you're asking that salesperson to do. Are they hunting? Are they going out and getting new work? Are they account managing? Are they focused on retaining the work that we already have? So understanding exactly what the position is and being very detailed in the process that you get to that selection. It doesn't have to take a long time, but there may be, if this is an area of challenge for you, you may just be missing some steps in that process. 30-30-10, 30-30-30-30-10. So interview is about 30, your background check and all those kind of things. Reference checks is another 30. Your structure, your assessment tools, there's some really solid assessment tools now aligned to the positions, is another. And then that 10% is just, that's your gut check. I like that person, they're gonna fit our culture. Perfect, right?
Speaking of culture, I know from either an interviewee's perspective or a company looking for talent, how can someone determine whether the culture fit is there? Because I mean, you know, you've got experience, preferences, whatever, so you know that the person has the skill set to perform that job, but do they have the cultural fit for the entity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is often the hardest part. And one is being really clear about what your culture is. And when you advertise a certain culture for your business, you tend to attract people who are attracted to that culture. If you're an interview, you know, if you're looking for a job and you go to a place, they advertise a certain culture, and what you find there in their process is not that, that is a cue that may not have a genuine culture. So it's being attentive to the details. I think this is somewhat where if you're using assessments, things like personality assessments can come in a little more. I don't recommend them in the hiring process. I don't recommend personality assessments in the hiring process. That's not legal advice. That's just me talking. But competency assessments that are based on competencies, but sometimes you can use that more personality data to just kind of do a check on that and that fit. And asking structured questions that not just relate to their ability to do the job, but relate to those culture pieces.
Like
So talking
situational.
talking about your culture in the interview process and asking questions that give you information to find out how are they going to fit within that. Great question. So in the last topic I just wanted to touch on real quick is keeping your sales team engaged and eager to produce results. If you have salespeople who are not actually selling, or you can't afford to lose any more good salespeople, you're losing salespeople, then this may be an area to look at, is often compensation is not aligned with results. So on the last minute, I think we're getting pretty close here, last 5 minutes. On the back page of your book, or towards the back, page 36. I hate to go to an event like this and walk away and I had all these great ideas and then it's tomorrow and I have forgotten my great idea because now I have slept. So this page is for you, 36, to think about one thing from today that you can commit to doing, even if it's just thinking about something further or talking to somebody or picking an area to focus on in your business. Oftentimes we get really excited and we decide we need to do everything. Don't do that. Pick one or two. And then also, realistically, we're coming into the holidays, so pick a realistic time frame to complete that task. So it may be that you want to tackle processes in Q1 or policies in Q1, and maybe leadership and succession somewhere towards the end in Q3, as an example. And this is where your friend comes in, and it doesn't have to be somebody in the room, but I would encourage you to, if there was someone that you connected with around a topic in here, to write down their name and their contact information and ask them to check up on you. Or talk to your business partner or an advisor or someone else that you want to share this information with, and put them as sort of a internal coach for yourself. Hold yourself accountable. Help others hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. Are there any in the last minute or done? 2 minutes, 3 minutes that we have left? Are there any questions or any other questions? Great. I hope this information is helpful. There are more books in the back. Feel free to, if you have someone back at the farm that you would like to share this with. We also have it digitally, and there are a lot more resources. Our role as a company development company, a company that does this for growing businesses, is to be a resource. So on our website, we have a lot of resources for business owners and entrepreneurs. So feel free to visit that as well. I think that information is on the back. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. Awesome.